Hi, this is Everett, Everett's Watercolors. Welcome to my studio. Today is another live watercolor demonstration and a painting. And I'm broadcasting from my studio, and I'm broadcasting to YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, and later on to Instagram. And the whole world should be out there listening to the broadcast. Uh, in the studio today with my wife, Gloria,
Hello.
and she'll be monitoring my broadcast and also the chat room. The chat room's live, so if you have a question or comment, give me a comment or a question. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Also, after the broadcast, you can also leave comments on the video, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Give me a thumbs up and so forth, and that's a like. I like that. Appreciate that. It helps with my rating. Today I'm going to do a autumn colors again. The autumn season is here. The trees are turning really fast now. A lot of yellows and oranges and browns out there. But I was out there last weekend and I was doing some painting and also I took some photographs. So let me show you my start up here and let me get started on a painting. So I'll go to my overhead camera. Okay, this is a photograph that I took last weekend, and you can see here it's lots of color out there on this roadway here, okay? And what I did, this is the first shot I took, and I started looking at it, analyzed it, did a couple sketches, so forth. And then I decided that I would move into this section right here. This large tree here, there's a small tree in the middle, and another tree here. And kind of just use this part here. Okay, so what I've done is I've cropped this off, and I'll show you my final configuration. So there's the final configuration of what I'm going to paint today, okay? I have a large tree here with lots of oranges and yellows in it. And then I have a small green tree here in the middle. And then I have like a medium-sized tree over here with some oranges and reds. I'll put a little more red over here. So that's my scheme. The background is going to be dark, so it doesn't matter what's there. I'm just going to put in a darker background behind, and just a little bit of show here, show and tell on the foreground. Here will be a roadway and the bottom of the trees. So that's my subject matter today, and we'll get started. I'm going to show you the interesting techniques I have all in store for you. I labeled this broadcast today I'm going to do autumn colors using stencil film, and stencil film is very, very handy. On my website I have stencil film in a pack, and it's available on my website, everettwatercolors.com, on my supply page, and I use this a lot. You can see here some old pieces here I have of stencil film that I've cut up, and if I was going to do this on a scale here, I'll show you. I would use this stencil film and I would put it on my paper, and I would match more or less the shape of the tree with the stencil film. So these are some previous stencils I've used in other paintings. These are older stencils that I've used, all different sizes and everything. But that's what they look like after they've been used. So once you cut a stencil out, you just store it in a folder like I have here, and put it aside and let it dry, and you can go back and use it again later. But what I did today, I did something slightly different. I'm using a stencil, but here's what I did. I took that outline, and let me show you that close up again. I'm going to show you my trees. And that's the close up of the trees. You see that large yellow orange tree there on the left. Then I got that smaller green tree there in the middle, and a little tree there on the right with some yellows. I'm going to put some more reds in there. So it'll be a variety of those autumn colors.
It would be a good idea to take a screenshot.
Yeah, you can take a screenshot as a reference. It'll be there. And you can also, on the replay, you can also stop the video and take a screenshot also. So let me take me back to my overhead camera again. Oh, I'm already there. I'll just take that off. So I'll show it to you a little bit more during the process here. But that's going to be my subject matter right there. Okay, so what I did was I took that shape and I sketched it out on. Now this is 300 pound. This is heavier work. I usually use 140 pound Gemini watercolor paper, but this is 300 pound, which is a heavier, because I'm going to do a little bit of water techniques today. I want to have a little heavier paper to use. Okay, this doesn't buckle or anything. It just lays flat. So that's the shape that you saw in the video. There's a large tree here and a little tree here. And I'm going to make this a little different size over here on the right. So those trees are there. So that was my overall shape of my trees right there. So I drew that on a piece of 300 pound watercolor paper. All right, then what I did was I took an X-Acto knife, and this is a flexible X-Acto knife, and I can just set that up. And I went in and I cut out the shapes that I wanted. And you can see here's the shape of the larger tree right here. That's stencil. And I left the opening here, which I could use also. And then I have a stencil here for the middle-sized tree, the green one. And then I have another stencil here for the third tree on the right. And you can see here's the outline of that same outline that I drew on that paper. So I used the outline, the overall outline of the trees, the tray form. But I have individual stencils here of the shapes that I'm going to paint today. Okay, individual state. So that's kind of the setup that I do before I get started painting. Is I have those are the tools I'm going to use: a stencil and a piece of paper and so forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this aside. This is my stencil layout right here. Now I'm going to go back here. I could go back to this piece. This is the one I'm going to paint on right here. The one with the outline drawing that I have. This is the one I'm going to paint on. I could come over here with this stencil, and I could block out these sections here with the pieces I have, right like this. And I could go ahead and paint here just in that one section. And then I could cover that up with this and remove this center section, and I could paint this. And then cover this up and have the third section and paint that. So that's one way I could have used the stencil here and the painting. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something even different than that. That's a second option. So my third option is to go back to the basic here. I'm going to use this overall sketch of the outline of the three trees. And I'm going to cover up this section here with one stencil right here. I'm going to cover up this section here. That's the little green tree. Now also, just for references, I'll also put the other one in. So now I've blocked out the color tree. The only one I got here is the large yellow tree. And I'll go back and show that to you again. So I'm going to go ahead. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the large tree on the left. Okay, so this is my setup now. I'm going to have stencils here on the right, and I have this opening over here. Now, I've got several brushes, but the first one I'm going to have is this is a 1-inch flat Holbein flat brush, 1-inch flat. And over here I've got my palette here, which I've got these tubs in. These are my stretch palette. And what I'm going to do is load up my brush with a little bit of yellow lemon. I'll load the brush up. Before I do that, let me show you the technique I'm going to use. I'm going to actually splatter. Now, when I splatter, what I'm going to do is I'm going to load the brush with paint, and then I'm going to go down, and if I look at this, you see that I stop it just before I hit the paper. I'll come back with my wrist, and I'll come down, a snap of my wrist, and I'll stop the brush just before I hit the paper. That's the technique. Okay. So what you want to do is you want to get a spare piece of paper. Or just a piece of old paper bag or whatever, and just practice the technique. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start with the yellow, and I'm not going to worry about the outside. The outside's going to be darker anyway. So I'm going to go here and start putting in some color. You can see the splatter technique. But before I do that, the next thing you want to do, the next step.
Well, remember to go down, because otherwise your spouse may get painted. I got an old terracotta towel here, and I always cover up everything around the painting. Okay, that's very important because you're going to have splattering everywhere. You can control it pretty much, but you want to cover up anything that's important that you don't want to get splattered. All right, so let me go back. I'll load up my brush again, and I'll come over here, and I'm going to go ahead and keep putting in something. I'm going to keep splattering. And I'm aiming at this area over here. It's an area. I don't care. Actually, I don't care really where the paint hits. I just want to cover an area. And the outside area is going to be covered up anyway with darker paint, so I don't care. I'm just focusing in on this section here. So as I go down, wham, right there is what I'm going to go for, right in the center. So if I aim my brush right there and stop the brush just before I get to the paper, then the paint will splatter onto the surface. Okay, I get up a little bit more. So I load the brush several times, and I want to put enough paint on there so it will get started. Okay, now I'll lay that brush down. Now I'll go to my spray bottle. This is my dot spray bottle, palette in a bottle, dot sprayer, sold exclusively on Everett Watercolors. And just got water in this one, just plain water. And a light tapping motion, I'm going to hold it about 8 inches above the surface. And just going to drop some of that water down on top of those droplets of paint. And what that does, that's going to spread that paint out a little bit more, get a little more water on the paper. Okay, then I put that aside. And then what I'll do now, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to pick up, this is a spray bottle with a palette in a bottle dot sprayer with yellow orange in it. Okay, I'm going to prime the pump. And I'll go over here, and now with a light tapping motion, I'm going to put a little bit of orange on this now. This particular tree here has got more yellow orange in it than the other trees. So I'm going to go ahead and put some of that in there and get some color going. Okay.
And when you prime the pump, what you're doing is spraying into your water bucket.
Right. I'll spray into the water bucket, and also that loads the primer of the pump. All right, I'm going to go back now and put a little more yellow lemon in here. So this is my third trip to the paper. Make sure it's nice and loaded. I'm going to leave a lot of white paper showing here because I'm going to go back in later on and put in some branches and so forth. Now in addition, I've got palette in a bottle with dot sprayer with yellow lemon in it. So I'm going to go ahead now. I've done some splattering with a brush. Now I'm going to go in. I'm going to prime the pump. I go into the water bucket, and over here, and I'm going to add a little more yellow now with the spray bottle. So I'm using splattering technique, and I'm going to really concentrate on the edges, the sections. And here I get a little more accuracy now. I know I can hit right on where I want to hit with the spray bottle. Okay, with a light dot spray, a light pressure on the pump. Okay. So now I've got a pretty nice display here. I'll bring it up real close for you can see that. Nice display of yellow and orange on the palette, on the paper. And I'll go back. I think I'll put some more yellow. I can do this with the dot spray bottle. It's already pumped, so I'm just going to put some more color in there. So put a little more color on top of the yellow. Okay, that's enough of that. All right. So now that's the color scheme I have for that first tree. Now, if you remember, we look back at the tree. I'm not trying to get the exact colors there because there's a little bit of green in there too. But I'm not going to copper exactly. So it just gives me an idea as a reference. Okay, just a reference photograph. That's all I'm using. The real key here is to get the proper shape to make it look like a tree. All right. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to dry this just a little bit. I'm going to dry. So I'm going to put the blow dryer on, and I'm going to dry the paint. So the first thing I did, remember, I went with. I got the overall drawing of the outline of the tree line that I wanted. And then I prepared a couple stencils to break up the shapes. And then I covered this section over here with the 2 smaller stencils. And then I started right away with splattering, a splattering technique with the large brush. And that was a 1-inch flat Holbein flat synthetic brush loaded with yellow lemon. And then I added also yellow lemon and yellow orange with the dot spray bottles, the palette in a bottle dot sprayers on top of that. So a combination of splattering and spray bottles got me to the stage right here. And I'm going to leave some white paper open.
I have a question that when you're putting the hairdryer on it, does it move any of the paint around?
No. The question was, does the sprayer move the paint around? No, because the paper's lying flat.
You mean the dryer?
The dryer, and I'm moving the dryer over, but it doesn't move the paint at all. This has got a nice heat on it, but it doesn't have a large, heavy blast. So, it doesn't move the paint at all. Now I want to make sure, I want to try to get this edge over here, the one next to the green one, because that's the next area I'm going to paint. So I make sure I get this as dry as I can over here. So I'm concentrating more on the right, on this right edge over here. Okay, I think what I'll do now, before I leave this, I'm going to use this dot sprayer with the water in it, and get up here and add some more drops of water. Again, that'll loosen up some of those areas a little bit more. Add a little more water to the mix. Okay. Now I'm going to continue drying. So this is a fairly fast process. It takes. Now I could wait and walk away if I was painting in my studio during the day. I would go ahead and do this and walk away, and then come back maybe 20 minutes later, and it would be dry. But I'm speeding it up now with a dryer, so I can continue on. Okay, that's dry enough for right now, because it'll be dry by the time we finish the painting. All right, now I'm going to move these two stencils here away for the time being. All right, this is a small stencil. This is the next area I'm going to paint. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my stencil here now for the large. I'm going to cover this up. So I'm replacing this stencil. Now what this does now, this protects this area over here. This large stencil now protects the area I just covered. And so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to cover this section up with the stencil. So the only area I've got open now is the green area. I mean, remember now, if you look at the photograph, I've done the left side with the yellow and the orange. The center I'm going to do a little bit of dark green, and the right side I want to be protected with the yellow again. So that's where I'm heading for now. I'm heading for the center section of the painting. So now I'm going to change colors, and I'm going to use the same brush. And it's already got yellow mixed in it, but I'm going to pick up some of the, let's see, some of the blue here. This is ultramarine blue in my palette. I'm going to load the brush now on the side. And I think now it's loaded with paint, and I'll come over and I'm going to use a splatter technique on this area also. Got to load up a little bit more. Got to go a little bit more water into the brush. And I start splattering this technique. Now this is a splatter technique here for getting this dark green. I'm gonna pick up a little more water in my brush. This has got to be pretty. It's got about, I don't know, 50% water and 50% paint. Pick up a little more. Now I'm gonna pick up a little more yellow in my brush and make this a little greener. So I'm mixing my paints here in the palette with the brush. Get it nice and wet. Okay, then I'm going back here with now. The next step is I would take my spray bottle, the dot spray bottle with just water in it. I'm going to hold it about 8 inches up, and I'll just lightly tap it, light tap motion, and spray that. Now that'll spread that paint out on the paper. You can see it moving now. Okay, and that's going to spread with paint, with the water. And I'm going to get some more paint in my brush, a little more yellow in the brush. I added yellow to this blue to give me a little bit of green mixture, dark green. I'm going to go back in now and splatter some more. Now I'm concentrating now on the edges that meet together with the other tree. And remember my outline that I drew there in the beginning. I have an outline Now the spray that's on the outside doesn't matter, so I'm going to make that darker anyway. Okay, now I'm going to put a little more water in there just to get it nice and loose. Okay, now what I think I'll do is, now I'm going to take this is the 1/2 inch flat brush. 1/2 inch flat brush. I'm going to load it with a little bit of paint. And I'm just going to go in here and just kind of move the edges just slightly. I'll make a little more edge control here. Just a little bit. Okay. All right, that's enough of that. And I think what I'll do is I'll pick up a little bit of this. It'll get darker as I do it, but I'm just going to pick a little bit of that up. And I'll pick up some of the dots. It doesn't matter. Okay, now let's take a look. Let's take a look at where the edges are. Let's pick this one up. Okay. All right. There's the edges of those two trees right there with the stencil gone. I'll move the stencil. And over here, I'm going to move this. Okay, there's that edge with this stencil. Okay. Now I've got that little tree to find there in the middle. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and blow dry that. So get the dryer on that. What this will do, I'm going to dry up some of the water here because it's pretty wet. And here, let me bring it up nice and close to you. You can see now you can see the results now. A smaller tree there in the middle. And let me take you back to my reference photograph. I'm doing that green tree there in the middle there between the two yellow and orange trees. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to continue on drying. We got one more tree to put in. But first of all, I get this dry. So what I did here was I put the stencils over here over the yellow section, and I put the other stencil on the blank section over here. And then I splattered a mixture of yellow and blue, which gives me a dark green. I splattered it with the large brush, the 1-inch Holbein brush. I splattered that paint here on the side. Now, let's see if I can move it. I'll tilt this just slightly to get that paint to move a little bit. Okay, that's pretty dry. Not bad. It's still going to be wet, but it's okay. There's enough in there to cover. Okay, I'm going to continue on with it just a little bit longer. Give me another 30 seconds here. Try to dry this up. It's still wet, but get it down to where it's just a little bit moist. It'll be okay. I can still see a little bit of shine on the paper, so it's still wet in one area. Because I had some real, remember I added water to this, so it gave me a lot of puddles in there of different textures and different colors with that blue and yellow combination. Okay. Oh, all right. So that's where we stand right now. That's the two shapes I have, the large yellow and the large green tree. All right, now we're going to go to the third tree. So number one, I'm going to cover up. Now I'm going to use this stencil. I'm going to cover up the green tree. I'll cover up the green tree. Is that right? Let's see. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Okay, it doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but now I'm covering up this blue area, and I don't have to worry about this section over here. So I'm only going to be working on this section right here, the one with the, another yellow tree. Now this one I'm going to add, I got to wash out my brush now because I have a lot of green in there, so I'm going to wash out my brush. And when you rinse out the brush, especially if you worked with a darker color, you got to make sure that it's clean. And what I do is I load the brush with water, then I go in, I use a tissue and I squeeze it, make sure that it's in clean water. Once I rinse it out, then I go to clean water and I come over and I squeeze the brush out and make sure that the majority of that color is gone. And there, There we go. Okay. Use a tissue and I squeeze that out. Okay. And I'll pick up some clean water. Now I'm going to go back into that yellow mixture. Load that brush. Now this one I'm going to put a little bit of. I'm going to start with the yellow. So I'll use that tapping motion, or I can tap it. I use a tap my finger too. I use a tap my finger and just drop it down if I want to be more careful, or I can just slam it down with that. What I call the splatter. This is a splatter motion here. You bring it down and stop. Wham. You start at the top and bring it down. See if I can show this. You bring it down and stop. You start at a certain different direction. You get about 4 or 5 inches above the paper, then you snap it down and stop. Just before you hit the paper. You don't want to touch the paper. Just stay above it. Okay. So that's the motion. It's kind of a wrist action. A wrist action where you just snap your wrist and then let the paint fly. It's a lot of fun. I love this technique. I wanted to show it today because this is one of my favorite techniques. And I've done several paintings with this way, and it turns out very effective. I've been very happy with it. Okay. All right. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the dot spray bottle with yellow, and I'm going to go in and I'll get a little bit closer now to that. I'm going to make sure I fill in all the yellow next to that green, especially. That's where the contrast is. Always looking for contrast. Always looking for contrast. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pick up a little bit of red in my brush. I got Pyrrole Red here in my palette. And I'm going to just take a touch of that. It won't take much. It won't take much at all. Let's see. I better use this brush here. No, I got to use another brush because I don't want to contaminate that. I'll mix a little bit of orange over here and see what happens here. All right, let's see. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. All right, so I'm mixing the orange mix over here. All right, a little orange on my brush. All right, now I got some orange here. See this over here? I'm going to make a darker red over here on this end. And that'll make this a different color of autumn leaves, just to give a variety. Looking for variety now. Variety of color. I already got the variety of shapes. Large, medium, and small. But now I got a variety of color. I got yellows, and I got blues, and I got oranges and reds over here. So I'm always looking for a combination of different colors. A little more red over here. Okay, all right. I think you got the idea on that one. Now I'm going to take the spray bottle with just the water in it. And I'm going to hold it about 8 inches above, and with a light tapping spray, just go down and spread that paint out a little bit. Okay. All right, now I got to dry this one down. So I'll take my dryer. You can see the colors already. This is more yellow over here. This is going to be green and blue in here, and then this one's going to be more orange and reddish over here. So I got the 3 different colors, and that's what I wanted, a variety of color. And those are the colors of autumn. You still got the green trees out there, but you got that reds and yellows and oranges. And that's the part I wanted to capture today. So now, remember what I did was I put the second stencil over the green. Now I mixed the yellow lemon. I did splattering, and I used a spray bottle. Then I mixed a little bit of red in with that yellow to get mint orange. Okay, and we lift this stencil up. Okay, put that aside. And continue to dry. I think I'll lift the paper a little bit and move the the paint will move because it's still wet, so I can lift the paper slightly to get it to flow. Just kind of spread that paint out a little bit. It's still very, very wet, so I'm drying it out now with a blow dryer. Okay, we'll let that dry. Now it's still wet. I'll let it dry. We're not going to touch it anymore. Just let it. Now I can start. Now I can start adding some other features here. The one thing in my design, and I'm going to go back to my reference photograph here. Let's see. Where's my photograph? Here it is. Okay. Before I see it come around. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start adding in some of the tree trunks here at the bottom. Okay, there's a trunk here, here, and here. I'm going to put 3 in. So I'm going to go in now with, I'm going to use my number 8 round Holbein round brush. Number 8 round. I'll bring this over so you can see what I'm doing. All right. And then I got a little bit of yellow ochre over here. Yellow ochre, and I got a little bit of burnt sienna. And I'm going to put that tree trunk in over here. Start one over here. And that will come down about right there. That's good. And then this one here, I'm going to come down on this side. And I got one more over here. This is a, remember this is a little bit, I'm looking down at an angle, so this one will come down about right here. And I may pick up a little bit of ultramarine to make that darker. Put a little ultramarine in there to darken up that tree trunk, because they're in shadow. They're below the light. The light's up top here, but they're in the bottom of the tree. The trees are going to shadow that one out. Now I think what I'll do now is I'm going to take a little bit of that green now in a palette that I have here, and I'm going to go across the bottom. There was some green, a little bit of grass here. Some green grass here. I'll put that in, just a little bit of grass, and that gives me another not only another element, the grass or the ground, but also gives me another nice contrast. This green will also contrast with the other colors, the oranges and yellows. The green is a nice combination with the red combination. And lights and darks here and shadow. That's fine. Pick up some more of that yellow. Pick up that yellow out of my palette. Gives me that. Mix it in with that blue. Gives me the green. There's more sun out here, so this will be a little bit lighter on this end over here. So I'm going to make this a little bit lighter. Put a little more yellow in my mix. A little bit of variety there. Yeah. Thank you. And I'll come down here now with a little bit more yellow at the bottom. Just a little bit. These will be some of the yellow on the ground from the trees, the leaves that hit the ground. The dark green is where the shadow is underneath the tree. And out here in the sunlight is where some of the leaves have hit the ground. on the grass and so forth. Okay, all right. Now let the trees dry a little bit more before I put some branches in there. I'm going to go ahead and start with the background. I'm going to move my this palette here aside. And let's see. Now I'm going to use another brush. So I'm going to start mixing up some dark background. And I think I'll use Ultramarine Blue. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to darken the background around these trees and build the edges of the trees. That's my next step. A little bit of edge control. Ultramarine, I got a little bit of royal blue over here and a little bit of Payne's gray to darken this up. A little bit. I picked up a little bit of quinacridone violet. So I want a nice dark mix. Now in the actual photograph, these are background trees, and I'm not even going to worry about the sky. It's not part of my design at all. I wasn't worried about the sky. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a little bit of water up here. Just a couple of dots of spray water. Just plain water up here. Just get the paper wet, because I'm going to put some paint on here. A little light tapping motion. Just get the paper wet. A little wet on wet technique. Load the brush. Now this is a number 16 round, which holds a lot of paint. But it's a nice brush for controlling the edges and so forth to go around these trees. So now I'm putting a nice dark background. And it doesn't matter what color you make this one. You could even make this into a night scene. You could call this the night sky if you wanted to. With some, you could have a light shining on these trees from a lamp post or something. You could lighten up the trees with a lamp post. You know, all kinds of stories you can make out of this. But the key here is I want this background to be dark against this light colors of the trees. And then I want to play and dance around the edges here to give a little bit of contour painting around these edges to show off the branches and also show off the edges of the trees. Now remember, watercolor, this looks dark now, but it's going to lighten up when it dries. And in fact, you try to get it down the first time, you try to get the right value. But again, what's going to happen is it's going to dry lighter. You might have to go in and make some changes after it dries, add some more color on top of it. It depends on what you have. Now this one here, this tree is kind of going to get lost in that background because it's going to be the same, almost not the same value. I'm going to try and make it a little bit darker around that tree. But I'll get the first layer here first, get that started. I want to keep the paint wet so I can keep moving. I don't want to have an area that's going to have a blotch or something in it. And I'm going to have a variety of color, a variety of shapes and forms. So I'm going to keep the brush moving so that the paint is still wet around where I'm working. Keep the brush loaded with paint. Go back into the palette to reload to keep the paint moving and keep the brush loaded. Working on the edges, getting a little shape here over on the side over here. Making a variety of edges, showing the branches and the edges of the leaves falling off the trees on the edges of the branches. And I'll be able to go down here at the bottom, cover at the bottom of this tree over here. Get at the bottom of this big yellow tree, right underneath. The paint's still wet, so I can still keep moving. You'll notice that all that color I had splattered in the background there is being covered up with this dark color, so that's why I wasn't concerned with it. when you start a painting, you want to decide where your light colors are and then what your dark. If there's a dark color that's going over top of the light, then you can just paint the light color in first, then paint over top of it with a dark color. And that takes care of any concerns about worrying about where the light color is going to go. I'm going to keep a little highlight here across the bottom here, just to maybe could be a little glare from the sky or whatever. I'm going to have a little separation here from the grass and the background. That's my decision. And I'm going to come underneath this tree over here with some of that background color. Okay. Now I got to decide whether I want to make that yellow orange go in here or I want the green to go out here. I think what I'll put the blue, I'll put the dark in, a little bit of green on it, mix in a little bit of yellow. And I'll make this branch come out so that this will show that this overlaps the orange tree. So the green tree is coming forward. I'm going to make it overlap. Okay. And that pushes the orange tree back, or the yellow orange tree back. Okay. And let's see. Okay, the shapes are pretty good. So this technique I showed you about splattering with a stencil is to get the shapes defined and then go in and put the color in, as you see, and don't be too careful. Just have a good time, have a lot of fun. And now down here at the bottom, I think I'll just pick up some paint here on the brush. A little bit of this blue, and I'll come down here at the bottom, put another layer of shadow down here at the bottom. I try to eliminate all the white paper that I don't want to have showing. Just eliminate the white paper as much as possible, unless it's a highlight or something you want to have lighter. I'm wetting the brush a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and blend that in a little bit here. And I might pick up a little bit of that yellow. Knock that real bright yellow down. It'll be a little yellow showing, but I'm going to knock it down just a little bit. Make it merge in with that blue a little, make it with that green to come through. Okay. Okay, all right. Now what I'm going to do now is add in some branches and stuff in the trees. Going to need a little bit of burnt sienna. First I'll wet my palette here. I got the burnt sienna, maybe a little yellow ochre, a little bit of ultramarine blue. I want a dark brown, so I'll mix in the burnt sienna and ultramarine blue to give me a dark brown. And I can make it grayer, I can make it darker, I can make it black. I can make it any value I want. That combination of burnt sienna and ultramarine blue works all the time. And I think I'll make it a little bit darker. Okay, let's go take a look at the photograph where I am. Okay, that's the trees that I've done with the colors. Now I'm going to go ahead and add in some of those branches in the trees, okay? So that's my next step. Okay, so what I'm going to do over here, I'm going to move the painting over just a little bit. So I've got the shapes in there pretty well. And now I'm going to start adding in some of these branches. So I'm going to have and I've got some white paper here showing, so what I can do is just use the white paper to show off some of the shapes here. Now Now, I don't want to overdo this. I just want to indicate some branches, just to give a little bit of interest, a little bit of contrast to the yellow up there. And I'm going to put a few more up here in the top. I find a nice light area up in here, and I can add in a couple branches. And maybe some over here. And just balance it. I'll bring some over here on the side. Okay. Okay. Now this little green tree, the limbs are so dark inside that, but I can put a few hints in here because I do have some a lighter value here in the center, which I'll use now as my contrast to put in some branches. Now this last tree over here, just put a few branches over here. Okay. Maybe bring this one out just a little bit. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm going to dry it just a little bit. It's pretty wet. It's still wet here in some places. I'm going to dry it up a little bit more. We'll take a look at it. And maybe a few final touches I'll put on here. So yeah, put it in the background dark, and you know, you have choices there of what you want to put in. I could have put a row of trees back there and the sky and so forth. But I decided just go ahead and put the dark in the behind. Because I just want to highlight these 3 trees here that I found on the photograph to show off the autumn colors. Okay, now at this stage what I can do is I can go back in now with my spray bottle and with a brush. And I can go in and add in some more color, just a little bit. Maybe just a couple drops here. Maybe some up here, some out here at the edge. This contrast is very important here, this side over here. This side over here is okay. And then put a little yellow over here on the set, put some yellow up here at the top. Okay. All right, then what I want to do now is take my flat brush. And I can go in here now, and I can take that color and move it around. I got a spray. I sprayed it on there. Now I can use that paint on the paper. And kind of. What I'm doing is trying to eliminate some of that hard edges here. I'm trying to make a little bit softer edge here, hard edge here, and soft edge, so forth. I want this contrast here to pop out with the dark against the light. I may go back in with some more green there. And this side over here. Okay. So that dark green was I mixed in a little bit of ultramarine blue, and I put in lemon yellow. That dark green. So I'm going to go in here now, add a little more color in this one. And what I want to do is make sure I've got a nice contrast against this over here. This has to be really nice and dark against this yellow. Okay. All right. Well, the story today of the painting I did. I saw these three. I saw this row of trees. I picked this. I selected the three that I really liked, and I wanted to paint the autumn colors, the yellows and the oranges and the reds, mixed in with the green. I found a good combination of what I saw, and the configuration works out that way. I think the tree here I saw this nice yellow orange tree here and a little red on this one, and a nice green tree in the middle, with a dark background. Okay, a dark background. So that's what really gave me the interest of this particular technique. Now the technique I used was the splattering in the spray bottle. So let me put a frame around this. And I always find that putting a frame around a painting makes it look a lot better. I try to get that as far off as I can. Okay, all right. That's with a blue frame, and I think that pretty well brings it in. You have no suggestion?
No, just to show what the difference would be with the
Oh, okay.
different
Oh,
colors.
here now. There's a blue. Now I put a green one in here. I think that dulls it out a little bit. That's not really a good choice there. A green. I think the blue shows off because the blue is a nice contrast with this orange and yellow. The blue backing, and then the white. And here you could do a white trim. You could do a white. I could do a double matting with the white on the outside and the blue on the inside. That would also work because it pulls out the lights. The light pulls out the darks, and the darks pull out the lights. That's the contrast. You got contrasting dark against light. Here you got light against dark. Okay, so let's go back to my main camera. All right. Oh, main camera. Hey. Well, this is another fall day, and it's beautiful outside. The weather's nice and warm here. It's in the 70s, but it's going to be cooler tomorrow, and so it's going to drop down in the 60s again tomorrow. So I'll be out painting again this weekend. But in the meantime, today I just wanted to capture the scene I saw. And number one, I wanted to paint the colors, the fall colors, the autumn colors. That's really was what the title of the painting was. But I also wanted to show you how you can use stencil film or a stencil technique in order to accomplish the painting. Because you have these beautiful light colors, oranges and yellows and blue, and oranges and yellows and reds. But you got to be careful when you apply them that you don't cover them up with the darks and get them all smeared up. So a stencil film, the stencil film works, and also making a stencil out of a piece of paper, which I did with the watercolor paper, and cut it out like cutting out a piece of paper, and then layering over. I did it 3 times here in a particular painting. I did one for the light area, and then one for the darker area, and so forth. So that was a technique I wanted to show today, was how to use a stencil film or a stencil to block out the area in order to paint around it. Then I used the splatter technique, which I think is a lot of fun. Just splatter away. And the tapping, you can tap it on your hand or on your finger or against another brush. And then, of course, the spray bottle is number one, the palette in a bottle spray bottle by Everett Watercolors. That works every time to get the colors to go. So today was a fun day for me, and I'll be back again this week at 2 o'clock with Everett Watercolors. And tonight, I'll be on tonight at 7:30 with Simply Drawing with Everett. And I've got a little drawing there to do a practice tonight. And I know it's Halloween, but I'm going to do a drawing anyway. And hopefully you'll join me, or some people will join me. Or you can follow my video after the program anyway. You can always find me on YouTube and on Facebook. If you want to follow along with me on a painting or on a drawing, just capture the photograph, capture the painting. You can do it with me while I'm painting or afterward. And then post it on my Facebook page, Everett Watercolors Art Group on Facebook. and share that with everybody else. Love to see you on there. So until next week. Also on the weekends, I do anyone can draw with one line only. That's a lot of fun. A lot of people are looking in on that. So you all take care and stay safe and be careful on the Halloween night. So watch out for all those goblins running around. So